Today's figure is one of the most exciting figure pickups I've had in quite some time. If you're an avid collector like myself, you'll understand that the RIO Bone series of figures are incredibly highly coveted. There's a couple different series under the RIO Bone artist's name. Interestingly, quite a few series in the RIO Bone line are all Gainax properties. These figures seldom drop under several $100s when I see them online, so when I saw this for the price I saw it for, I had to pick it up. Now I have other figures from RIO Bone as well, and I'm rather satisfied with them, so I'm excited to see how Stocking measures up with the rest of them. Will she be angelic, or will she be devilishly disgusting? I'm almost reluctant to open this one just due to the value, but it's something that I had to do. I kinda wanted these for a while, so finally getting one is pretty exciting. Inside of the box is of course her blister, which shows all of her accessories here. And additionally, she comes with some instructions as well, though I don't think we'll need these too much. And here she is, and I'm pretty impressed with the size of this figure. I didn't expect it to be this large, even though I guess I've seen enough pictures of it. There's some interesting material being used here too. Her hair is soft. It's very velvety on the outside, which can show a little bit of staining. As you can see, there's like some lines and marks here. I think they could rub off pretty easily. Might just go hit her with like a wet washcloth or something. Visually, this thing is really pleasing. Anatomically, it works really well due to the way that they've made the articulation, yet it still captures that cartoony vibe from the show. Though I will say the funniest thing was that as soon as I opened the packaging, this happened. One thing I don't really like is that the back of her head is pink, which, I don't know, is that necessarily correct? I mean, I guess it looks better when she's in there, but I don't know. Now, we're gonna go ahead and take her hair off just so that I can show you some of her articulation. I like that the hair kind of just sits there as if it's like its own character. But this is pretty nice, actually. It seems to be a lot of ball pegs, and so far, all of the joints seem pretty tight. Her head goes up and down, and of course can swivel side to side, and it even rolls around a bit. That's thanks to the peg actually plugging into the back of the head. Her shoulders are limited, but they do go in and out, and you can swivel them, of course, as well. Her elbow is a simple hinge on a peg, so that can go in and out as well, and you can twist it if you want to. Her hand is similarly on a ball peg. It doesn't get much movement, but it can be rolled around the way you need it to. Her waist isn't necessarily articulated, but her skirt can spin, which I don't know if that's really necessary. Because if you take a look under her skirt, she actually comes with striped underwear on, which is really adorable, but she has quite a bit of a situation here with joints. So if you take off her skirt, inside she actually has a little midsection here with her pelvis, which is a very squishy, soft plastic, which is good because that allows the legs to move around as well. Now, each leg is attached to this weird little base inside, which is sustained on this ball peg that's plugged into here. And that ball joint allows her waist to move, but with the skirt, not very much so. Now the legs are very complicated. There's this weird sort of peg joint that connects into that socket, which then attaches via hinge to the leg itself, which is plugged into the top via a ball joint. There's a lot going on here for very limited articulation because the leg can go in and out and up and down, and it can even rotate a little bit, but that's really all it does, and for all of that, it's kind of scary, to be honest. There's her butt. Now, her knee is a simple hinge joint, but it actually moves really smoothly. I don't know what kind of hinge that is, but it's very nice. And finally, her feet are, of course, these little weird plates at the bottom of her foot, attached via ball joint, and they can roll around as much as you need them to, because look at them, they're just little dishes. Now, all of the articulation does make it seem just somewhat fragile, but that's not unlike the other figures from RIO Bone as well. And that's mainly because of how highly customizable they are. They come with a lot of accessories, and I think that translates, unfortunately, to somewhat of a bit of fragility. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you have a figure that has all of this customizability, that leaves you to have to put a lot of different slots and stuff like that for things to fit on. But overall, so far, I'm pretty impressed with this. She stands on her own rather well, which is good because she doesn't actually come with a stand, and her hair, funny enough, actually covers her arms for the most part, unless of course you make her reach outward. I could see these hair tendrils becoming a bit of a problem over time just due to the material, but so far so good. But of course, I mentioned accessories, so let's get into that. If you get up close in her grill, you can see just how nice her face looks. The actual faceplate is painted on incredibly nice. The eyes are super bright and actually a little bit glossy, which is nice compared to the more matted skin texture of her. And of course you can see inside there her mouth is painted on with just that tiny little line that's actually dug in and then filled in with that pink. This stuff looks really clean. There's pretty much no production errors on this thing, where if you've been watching my figure reviews for a while, you'll understand that's a pretty big deal. But in addition to her more lethargic standard faceplate, she comes with this somewhat enraged faceplate. It's hard to tell because her bangs cover her eyes a lot, but she actually has quite a bit of an angled eye here. She looks pretty mad and her mouth is open like she's yelling, "Give me a hot dog!" And again, the features are all really clean and beautiful. But let's show you the final faceplate. This is probably my favorite. Her final face is this somewhat orgasmic face. Her eyes are hearts and her mouth is contorted into a strange shape that I can't really describe. And this is of course for when she is enjoying her sweets. Stocking loves her sweets, and when she eats the ones that she loves the most, she gets a little excited, if you know what I'm saying. But we're not done just yet, because in addition to being able to do all this with her faces, she comes with something else that can be attached to her face. If you'll notice here, there's a tiny little tab right there, and that is for another accessory. And that accessory is going to be these super cool looking sunglasses, which actually, if you see here in the light, there's just the slightest bit of transparency to the plastic, which is really nice. And you can plug that right onto her face with no problem. These attach rather easily, they just clip right onto her face, and that actually allows for some leverage when you keep them on there. You can ever so slightly see through them and see her beautiful eyes. And with her hair on, that is just too cool. But just as she comes with her own shades, she actually comes with another pair. And while that may look like a bushel of bananas, I assure you it is the front plate for Panty's hair. So if you have her figure, these are actually different style glasses for her to wear, which I think is a really cool little feature here. Now I gotta get Panty so I can pair them together. In addition to all her facial pieces, she also comes with a bunch of different hands. She comes with these fists by standard, which actually look really good. The blockiness of the fingers really matches the aesthetic from the show, and the little painted nails are just a great touch on top of it all. She also comes with a pair of opened hands as well. She also comes with a gripping fist, which is closed, and here's a more opened gripping hand, which allows her to hold her sword out. She also comes with a hand that is displaying the heavenly pudding that she was obsessed with, and of course a hand to eat it with that's complete with a spoon. She also comes with these clasped together hands as well, which are pretty interesting. You would have to plug them into both arms though, so this one's a little trickier. She also comes with her little plush skeleton cat, which she is commonly holding in her arm in the show. Well, that's a bit awkward, but she also comes with a pair of completely bare legs, which are actually very thematically correct because of her final accessory. Not one, but two of her blades. These two swords here actually come with her, and of course, if you know about the show and the concept is that she uses her stockings, and when she removes them, they turn into these heavenly weapons. Whereas, of course, Panty takes off her panties, and that becomes her gun. So yeah, this is pretty cool, and the fact that you're able to swap it so that she has the right amount of stockings on her legs, say if you just make her want to hold one, and she has one stocking on, that's thematically correct. So that's pretty cool, and I do appreciate that attention to detail. Quite possibly the most unfortunate thing about this review is that I had a lot of trouble with the hands, mainly because this wrist joint basically broke when I tried to remove one of the hands. And this was after very little play. I wound up taking it off, and you can see here that there's a very thin piece of plastic between this piece here where it would plug into the hand and the actual joint itself. And there's basically nothing that I could find that would match this because one side is much thicker than the other, so this is a pretty specific joint. Luckily, I was able to fashion something together out of some wire and some thermoplastic, and that worked, but yeah, definitely not a good thing for this review. This figure is absolutely beautiful. I really love the way that it looks, and above all else, that's the best thing about it. Unfortunately, there's a few things that really drag this character down, and that would be design as well as articulation. But one inhibits the other. You see, because while the articulation isn't terrible, the design of the figure makes it almost impossible to use the articulation for anything. So in every pose that I put the figure in, I have to fit her arms through the window that is the very front of her hair. The fact that the hair is flexible does basically nothing. It's useless. So there's very little you can do to pose this figure, which is upsetting because I really did love the way it looked. Part of me was almost inspired to purchase Panty at an exorbitant price. But now I may just hold off for a moment. The joint breaking was another big problem too. I reached out to Sentinel and they responded very quickly and told me that since the figure was out of its warranty period, they didn't have any extra parts at their warehouse. Call me skeptical, but I don't believe that they don't have at least something similar to the wrist joint for this figure with all of the other characters that they've made. I doubt they would just dispose of the sculpting for the previous parts and all that. And I really don't believe that any of their other figures don't have similar wrist joints. If they do though, I will say get rid of them because they're terrible joints. Another problem was her hair, because towards the end of the review, her joints seemed to have weakened to a point where the weight of her hair was too much to bear, and it was hard to keep her in certain poses. So with all of that in mind, I love the way this figure looks, but I simply hate the way it plays. The Sentinel Stocking by Rio Bone is going to get a 6 out of 10 from me. I can't be too nice and say that this thing is awesome just because it looks good. I can't be biased. Personally, I'm more of a scanty and knee socks guy, and I actually like Panty more than Stocking, so this figure was on the bottom of my list of things to buy, but the fact that I got it for the deal that I did made it a no-brainer. But what do you guys think? Do you like this figure? Do you want to buy my broken one? I'll give it to you for a pretty good deal. Why don't you drop a comment and let me know what you thought about this review, and like the video if you did indeed like it. I'm going to link something on screen for you guys to check out, so make sure to do that. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, have an amazing weekend, and keep on collecting.